very good afternoon to you, dear viewer at home, and welcome to today's episode of Isthmus Daily Rendezvous with your brother and friend MC Liggy. Of course, it promises to be rewarding as usual. And today we are going to be looking at two events that has taken place within the course of this week, and they are global victims of terrorism and religious violence day 2026. And I think that happened on the 21st and between the 21st and 23rd of the month of August. And today we're going to be looking at the highlights, the global theme for that event, those events, two events, and then what the people in charge of those areas, a segment of our society, is doing here in our country, Nigeria. Of course, there is a responsibility to take care of people or victims of religious and terrorism violence. Ah, um, it's rather the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, led by Honorable Dr. Bernard M. Dorr. All right. Of course, there are a lot of programs that that ministry has come up with in recent times, and we are going to be taking a look at those programs. For example, there is one known as conditional cash transfer for those who are indigent and then victims of those kind of things that were mentioned initially. And then you have the school feeding program, and also you have government enterprise and empowerment program, jeep, for young people. All right, what has the ministry been doing in the past 3 years to ensure that these lofty goals are realized? How realistic and how sustainable are these programs of the ministry? I'll make a return and the conversation will continue after this time out. Remember that you can call in through our studio line 0915 8223. All right, that's the line to call in from. Okay, I'll be with you. I'll back shortly to continue with the conversation. All right, welcome back from that short break. My name is still MC Licky, and this is Isthmus TV. All right, and then we are going to begin our conversation with this popular quote from Karl Marx and Chinua Achebe, quotations from Karl Marx and Chinua Achebe. For Karl Marx, he said, religion is the opium of the masses. Okay, remember we are discussing, Global Day for the Victims of Religious Violence and Terrorism. Okay, all right. So that religion is the opium of the masses. So I hope you understand what an opium is. A drink. All right, probably one that is very sugary and tasteful, but also makes one to be drunk or inebriated or lose his or her mind. All right, opium of the masses. That is, and it's very cheap because it's for the masses. They can easily take it and drink and continue to drink. That's the implication of that being an opium of the masses. What everyone, all right, no matter how lowly placed the person is, can lay hold on and swallow and drink continuously, not minding the quantity the person is taking. And you know what happens when you take something beyond the recommended quantity? Of course, it has deleterious effects. All right. Okay. Now, this Global Day for the remembrance of victims of terrorism, religious crisis, or violence was instituted in the year 2019 by the United Nations General Assembly. I hope the United Nations President is listening, Mr. Antonio Guterres is listening to what we're saying this morning from Nigeria, because we have some questions we want to ask. All right, it's not enough for you to say that the narration, okay, has to be changed. All right, that government of member countries of the United Nations must work assiduously to ensure that the narrative is changed in their different countries. What measures are being put in place to ensure that these governments are held accountable and compelled to ensure that they implement these programs by the United Nations. Now, the cardinal objective of this program, all right, of this day that we are marking is, to condemn, equivocally, and, to come out and say that, attacks on places of worship, schools, cultural centers must be stopped. All right? Yes. That's the number one goal. And the second one is that to end hate speech, violence, and religious intolerance. Okay. So, in spite of these programs by the United Nations, you find out that in some countries, these things still happen, all right? There was a time it was happening in Nigeria at a very large magnitude and scale, all right? Those days that Boko Haram and other bandits were making inroads freely into churches and killing people in up north, all right, northern Nigeria, okay? So now that the situation has been brought seemingly, all right, under control, what is the government doing to ensure that the issue never springs up again? Okay, yes, it's been brought under control, relatively brought under control. We do not hear those things, killing, indiscriminate killing, senseless, unreasonable, destruction of life and property because of religion, and extremism. You know, it's no longer prevalent in our society. But what must we do to ensure that they don't resurface? There's no resurgence of killing of people and destruction of property in our beloved country, Nigeria. And the team, remember that we said we're going to begin with a quote from Achebe, and then you say, and Achebe unequivocally stated that the man that does not know where the rain began to beat him wouldn't know where to dry his body or where he dried his body. Have you seen it? That's how important this is. If we cannot, you know, you utilize the experiences of the past to form the basis of our existence in the future, then that means we still have a problem. There is a likelihood that that which we have suffered in the past will also become our lot and experience. Why I'm saying this is that the sub-theme of this year's event is healing through memory, right? Healing through memory, right? Yes. If we remember all that we've been through in the past, we wouldn't need a soothsayer to help to tell us to act wisely henceforth. All right, this is still Isthmus Daily Rendezvous. I'm my brother and friend MC Liki, and the discussion still continues. And we have